Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Lavish T. Williams. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in to watch this podcast. Today's guest that I have on the show today is Dr. Sabrina. Dr. Sabrina, she's a life coach and an author. She's a woman of very many talents, and it's a pleasure and an honor to have her on my show today. So, can everybody make some noise? Give her a round of applause. Yeah, Dr. Sabrina, thank you for joining my show today. The reason that you're here is to talk about suicide. I want to talk about suicide. It's a lot of suicides that's going on out here in our community and around the nation every day. It's just not talked about as much. And I wanted to talk about it, seeing how and what we can do to help someone that might be in need, who's quietly seeking help, that's crying out for attention but don't know how to really express it, and nobody's paying attention to it to see that it's a problem. So let's get right into it. Suicide, what do you know about it?
Well, the thing about suicide is that suicide is something that in the Black community, we used to say that that's not something that we did. That's not something that African Americans did. But even before the pandemic, there was a rise in suicides within the Black community, and since the pandemic, the numbers have been increasing even more. We have seen a lot of suicides in the celebrity realm. Within the African American community, Miss USA committed suicide, and then right before that, um, the son of Regina King committed suicide. And these type of high profile suicides have really shined a light that this is a discussion that we need to have. But did you know that in the Black community, the highest number of suicide happens between the ages of 25 and 34?
No, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
25 and 34. The second largest and fastest growing group are among teens. So that's starting at the age of 8 to 15. Young Black males are committing suicides. And the other thing that you need to know about the suicide, women attempt suicide more, but that's the attempting of suicide. However, men or boys are successful, they are more fatal because generally the way that a male attempts suicide is more fatal. They will either shoot themselves, hang themselves,
Hmm.
things of that nature, whereas women tend to do things like take pills or maybe cut their arms and lay in water, things of that nature. So the thing about suicide within our community, it is something that we absolutely have to talk about because not only is suicide something that we don't talk about, but the thing that leads to the whole mindset of suicidal behaviors is just anything that has to do with our mental health. If we say mental health, people think, oh, they think I'm crazy,
Right, right,
or, or,
right.
or I need help. Well, let me say this: everybody at some point needs help.
Correct. Now I remember at one point in time growing up, and I'm a lot younger than you, but to say
How you
mental
know?
health,
How you know you're not? How you know? Just throw that
you know,
out there.
I'm
It's just
I'm still a young guy.
he talking about something. I'm a lot younger, like he 10 and I'm 50. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm a baby, you know, but it was unheard of to really have an open discussion about mental health. It was something that people never talked about. And to be honest with you, I didn't start hearing the term mental health until probably within the last 5, 6 years. Is when it became a more commonly used term. When I was growing up, it was like you say, if you say mental health, if you say you need help, if you need to go to a doctor, something was wrong with you. And then it was something that a lot of the families, kept secret. They wouldn't talk about that. That was like a big no, no, it's nothing wrong. He's okay, blah, 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 whatever. But fast forward time, man, it's actually it's a big thing that's going on within the community.
Well, the thing that we have to understand that as people, the way that we're created in three parts. We have a physical self, we have a spiritual self, and then we have our mental self.
Okay.
So, as far as your mental and emotional self, you have emotions. And based on what's going on in your environment, based on sometimes what we eat, what we ingest, it impacts our mental and emotions. And so sometimes in our communities, we are doing things over and over again that's negatively impacting our mental ability, our mental stability, the ability for us to just maintain where we are rational in our thinking, rational in our behaviors. Because oftentimes, when we're not, sometimes we have ingested things, and not just substances that's like illegal substance, but there are substances that you may take in your body that will have a negative impact on your mental stability. Whether that be additives that's added to foods, coloring that's added to foods, so that's why it's so important that we, as just individuals, understand the holistic viewpoint of what makes us up. Because what's so interesting to me, if I told you that I had cancer, you would absolutely say, "Oh my God, are you in treatment? Can
Yeah.
I help you? What do you need?" But if I told you I was depressed, you may look at me side eyed. If I said I had bipolar disorder, oh, she crazy. Um, so why is it that if something's wrong with me physically, we can accept that, but if something is wrong with me emotionally or mentally, we shun away from that. We think that that's something that we should not talk about. But those are the same things. It's a part of what makes us who we are.
I agree. With the mindset of these individuals, um, trauma, I would say trauma has to play a strong factor.
Well, it doesn't have to play. It could be one of the factors, but there is some things that happens to us genetically
Okay.
that may not have anything to do with trauma. It's just what you come from. And so I always say this, if a person is mentally ill and say they're schizophrenic, and then a schizophrenic gets with another schizophrenic and they have children, those children have a higher ability of the possibility of being schizophrenic. And then one of the things about schizophrenia is that you hear voices. The voice may tell you to kill yourself. None of that has to do with trauma.
Okay.
And so sometimes because we don't have all of the information, we make assumptions. And assumptions is when we don't have all the information. Now, trauma can cause a person to become hopeless, to feel helpless, that there's something going on that they can't control, that they feel that they can't control, and it's not going to get any better. I know that there's clients that I've worked with over the years that they've had a health challenge, and the health challenges they feel is not going to get any better, and they feel like the best way to deal with it is to take themselves out.
Mm.
So there are so many things that can be going on with a person. There can be a person that may be devastated over the loss of a loved one, the loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, that gets them into this place of hopelessness. The place and the thought of hopelessness and helplessness is what gets people to start thinking about suicide, thinking about, I can control this situation. This situation is not going to control me. I'm going to just check out and I'm going to be gone. And then it's amazing how people really think that people around them will be better off if they're not here.
I've heard that. Talking to people who have thought about committing suicide.
And so as people who are dealing with our friends, our family, the people around us, if we see there's some things we need to look for in understanding the signs of suicide. The first thing that's so important if a person is begin to talk about getting rid of all of their things, giving away things that are important to them, that the things that used to bring them joy no longer brings them joy, and they're always sad and depressed, or they have massive mood swings. So one minute they may be ha, hey, let's party. The next time you see them, they are down in the dumps, they're crying, they're So those massive mood swings can be a sign that there's something going on. And if they're talking about hurting themselves, doing something to themselves, we have to take those things seriously. And so when a person may talk about, well, I'm just going to check out, the question that we should then ask, have you thought about a plan? Do you have a way that you're going to do it? Because when people are really planning to do it, they create a plan. And I think that sometimes we think if we ask them that question, that's going to push them closer to doing it.
Yeah.
No, that's one of the things we need to know so that we can jump in and give them the type of assistance and help that's available for them.
Yeah, I had a situation like that before where I kind of asked in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about an individual in a conversation. I'm like, yeah, you want to do this to herself? And I mean, what should I do? Should I go over there and ask him, hey, I mean, how you going to do it? Do you got a plan? I mean, you plan on giving away this, giving away that? And I was told, man, that's pretty insensitive. So I kind of didn't mention it. However, he didn't commit suicide. But then I had other individuals that did commit suicide, and we talked about it. Not saying, hey, I want to commit suicide. I want to tell you the story about a guy who was supposed to have got a job for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a guy, he tried to kill himself. I knew him beforehand. And I had heard the stories, everything, and I asked him, I said, listen, let me ask you a question, man. Did you really try to kill yourself? And he said, yeah, I did. And he explained to me why. And I sat on the phone with him and I was hearing this is a guy, he's crying to me and, telling me about his life and his problems and his issues. And, I'm like, man, it's going to be all right, man. You shouldn't go out there and kill yourself. And, you shouldn't have did that because now look at you. And what he did, he told me, he said, listen, I had a plan. And my plan was to come home, go to sleep. I was going to wake up, light a cigarette, and the house was going to blow up. I said, explain. And he said, every morning I wake up around the same time, and it's a force of habit for me to grab a cigarette. So I had turned the gas on so that the house could fill up with gas all day while I'm gone. And then when I come home, I know that the gas is going. And when I wake up, I knew I was going to light that match. And the house was going to blow up, which the house did blow up. He didn't die.
Mm.
He was able to share that with me. And he was supposed to have got a job with me. He had helped me get some paperwork done and everything like that. And I told him, I said, listen, as soon as I get the paperwork done and I have the work that can come in, I'm going to call you so that you can get on board.
Mm-hmm.
And I did everything I promised him I was going to do. So I'm calling. And I got no answer. So then I got on social media and I just, hit him in the inbox and I said, hey, can you call me? And his mother called me. And I'm like, hello? And she's like, hey, is this Lavish? I'm like, yeah. I don't want to say his name on the air, But I was like, yeah, I'm looking for your son. And she's like, you don't know. And I'm like, no, please tell me. And she told me that he committed suicide. And I said, what? I had just talked to him not even 2 weeks ago about something that he had tried to do maybe a year prior.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I'm on the phone, while I was on the phone with him, I thought everything was great. I thought everything was good. He was waiting to, get this job. He was getting the paperwork to me. I was filling it out and I'm going to get you in the truck, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, man, they found him in a storage unit hanging. He hung himself. And I was like, wow, pretty sad to actually hear. And I just, talked to the guy. And it was so many other people since him that I personally know that committed suicide. And I didn't see any signs. So when you speak on certain signs, it's like, how can we as a people, as a friend, as a brother, a cousin, a relative, seeing how people hide these signs so well?
Well, I don't think that really that they hide the signs. We are so busy in our own life, we don't pay attention to signs.
That could be very true. I strongly agree.
Yeah. So one of the things that is just one of the signs that go with depression, go with suicidal ideation, is the whole sleeping patterns. But if you're not around a person,
Then you have no
you have
idea.
no idea what their sleeping patterns are. So, and I say it like this, is one of the ends of a spectrum. So on one end, you have people that don't require a lot of sleep. So they always sleep maybe 3 to 4 hours a day. That's just a normal thing. Once they get so depressed, they sleep all the time. They're fatigued, they're tired all the time. So if you know a person that they're always up at night, they always doing what they do, and now they're sleeping all the time, that's a sign. There's something wrong. But the opposite can be true. If you have somebody that they have to get their 8 hours every day, and that's what they do. They know they love sleeping. They're gonna get their rest, and now they're up. They can't sleep. They're up all night. That's a sign. So you have to pay attention to the people around you to know when there's a major shift in their normal behavior. But this is the other challenge. There is a disorder called dysthymia. Dysthymia is a form of depression that you've been depressed so long that you're not even clinically depressed anymore. It's beyond that because you've been depressed so long that your depressive nature has become your normal way of operating. So with some people that just always seem down, always seem lethargic, because they have been depressed so long. But even in that, those are the people that we need to ask about getting help.
And then you have the people that need help. How do we actually get them to actually see that they need help? How can we help them open up? Because I'm thinking that they've been depressed for so long that they might not even realize that they're depressed.
They don't.
And then they push people away. So how can we get into their mind? How can we get into what they're feeling? Get them to open up to us? Because at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that they eventually had tried and we just didn't pay attention to it. And they blocked us out at, so much time has got in between that they blocked us out. How do we get back when we notice it? How do we get back in?
Well, the one thing I think that's so important is that as people, we need people. And sometimes we just need to just, roll up on somebody and sit on the porch with them. Just spend time with them. Say, let's take a ride with me. Go here with me, or let's go get something to eat, or let's go have coffee, or let's go to the movies. But make yourself available to spend time with a person, because people push. It's easy to be pushed away when you go away.
Yeah.
It's easy to push you away when you go. I have people in my life that they not going.
If it don't matter how hard you try to push. It
don't matter. They gonna cuss me out and save me at the same time.
Yeah.
But we have to be there for people. And so when people feel like no one cares for them, they feel isolated. They feel that they can't talk to anybody because the people around them really aren't even concerned about them. They're concerned about what's going on with them. So we have to check ourselves first to see if we are the people that could possibly be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because are we the person that somebody can actually talk to? Or every time you're talking to me, I'm talking about me.
Right. So it's like if you're talking about you,
it's
no need for me to talk.
I have a friend, and and she's been a friend of mine for many, many years. And so during this time we were talking, and I shared something about my ex-husband, and she said, I didn't even know that your ex-husband was a pastor. I didn't know. And she had been knowing me for years. She says, I never knew that about you. I says, because to be real honest, we never talk about me. Whenever you call with your issues. So by the time we finish, going through all what's going on with you, there's no time for me. But now the second part to that, which I had to learn for myself, is that because I am in the helping profession, because I do things to help people, 9 times out of 10, when people call, they call for my help.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have to have people around me that when I need help, I feel comfortable opening up to. I feel comfortable sharing about what's going on for me, because I was teaching. Like I said, my ex-husband is a pastor. And I was teaching a Bible class one night, and everybody in the session, I could tell them who their like mentor was, or who they really liked as far as in ministry and ministers and stuff like that, and books to read. And so after I finished, I says, well, who knows who mine is? No one knew. And I said, I have to take some ownership of that too. Because not only do I have to be available for other people to share their information, I have to be open to sharing mine. And
Yeah,
sometimes we're not open, especially when we're the helpers, because the main people that are sometimes needing help are the helpers.
I agree. And I'm learning now to be more open because I'm still private.
But let me say this, private and closed are two different things.
I wouldn't express my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I kept them in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now releasing those feelings helped me become a better person mentally. I can breathe a little more. It's out. Owning my truth, whatever it is. I don't want to keep it bottled up inside because I think keeping certain things bottled up inside weighs down on you.
Absolutely, it does.
But I had to learn. I had to learn that. I had to learn to get my frustrations out when I'm feeling down, to speak on it, to talk about it, because I'll wear it on my shoulders all day long, and wouldn't want to bother anybody with my burdens. Wouldn't want to be a burden to anybody until I learned to speak up. I would let things happen to the point where they say, "Why didn't you say anything? You should have came to me." I'm used to people coming to me. So by people coming to me, I didn't even know how to go to people.
Oh my God, that is so good. There's a activity that I do called moving from self-defeating attitudes and behaviors to self-supporting attitudes and behaviors. One of the self-defeating attitudes is never asking for help. And I found that people who are the helpers, whether that be the police, the fire department, teachers, people who are in positions of helping others, in their top 3 self-defeating behaviors is never asking for help.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is.
But we are seeing, doctors make the worst patients. Because the very thing that you're so busy doing, when you're in the position that you need it, you don't know how. So we have to be open to learning how. And the only way that we learn how is to actually do it.
Yeah.
Is to actually say, you know what, I need help. So one of the self-supporting attitudes and behaviors is asking for help before, during, and after a crisis. Because generally when a crisis is coming, you see it coming.
You do.
And you go, uh-oh. And then when you're in the middle of the crisis, you know you're in the middle of the crisis. And even when you've gotten past the crisis, there may be still some emotional trauma that you haven't dealt with that you may need help with.
Now, and I want to speak on this, how do you ask for help when you feel that asking for help will make you feel less than, or that people will laugh at you? Because that's a big issue
among men.
People.
Mostly men.
I would say for men, it's a pride thing first with men. But
y'all don't want to be seen as weak.
I agree, because I'm strongly like that.
Y'all don't want to be seen as soft.
I agree.
And then women sometimes can exacerbate that because you my man, you got to be strong. I don't want you crying. I want my man crying.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this about crying.
All right.
Every single person has tear ducts. And they have tear ducts for a reason. Tears have purpose. And so crying is a bodily function that God created. And so when you're sad, when you're distraught, when things are going on and you start to cry, that is a part of the release of the emotion. When you don't do it, you hold it. And when you hold emotions, that is doing something negatively inside of you when you hold it and you don't let it go. And that's for anybody, especially men, because men tend to, when you all get upset, you become aggressive because that's how you've been taught.
Correct.
And so we have to get out of that because that's not the way we were supposed to be made to be. Think about it. We're supposed to be made, especially men, in God's image. When was God aggressive? God is a compassionate God. God is a forgiving God. God gives us grace and mercy. And so if we are made in his image, where's the compassion?
Yeah,
Where's the
where's
grace?
the grace? I think that, to go back what you say, even you mentioning women making men feel a certain type of way.
Mm-hmm.
Um some women help men and some women can make men worse. And my words might be wrong, the way that I'm saying it, but I'll explain what I mean by what I'm saying. Um, you have women and their whole focus is to tell a man what his job is,
Mm.
what he should be doing. You're a man, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. This is a man's job. Now you have some of these guys out there that go out there with that mentality and do some of the dumbest things ever.
Yep.
How do you battle that hearing it from a woman when you already have so many different things going on in your head, and then to still come home or be on the phone and have to hear it from a woman? When a man feels like, hey, I'm already going through this, I have to hear it from this lady over here. So this lady makes it very uncomfortable for me to even express myself to her, because if I express myself to her, I'm even weaker.
Well, the thing is, and I say this because relationships, of course, is another area that I spend a lot of time with. Women are created to be a help meet, help you to meet something. And so a woman really is supposed to have a sense of creating peace. And if you're around someone who is always chaotic, it's always calamity, it's always toxic, that ain't your person. Because your person should make you have a sense of peace. That does not mean that they won't challenge. That doesn't mean that they won't give you food for thought. But a woman's job is to help create peace. You hear the saying, happy wife, happy life. Because if a woman's at peace, she's her environment, she sets the tone. And so I used to tell my brothers, because I had two brothers, I used to tell my brothers all the time, if you feel like you got to fight, every time you get, all I have to do is fight, had to fight my brothers, that ain't your person. That's just not your person. I'm in a movie, and the movie is called Team Marriage. It's done by a local amazing couple, Spud from the radio. And in the movie, I talk about four things that bubbles do when they come out the jar. When you're blowing bubbles, and it really, to me, gives you an idea of the four types of relationships. The first thing a bubble will do is when they come out, they hit each other and they dissipate. So they crash and burn. You don't want that type of relationship. You don't want the type of relationship that every time I talk to you, I got to fight with you. We cussing, we fussing. Who wants that? The second thing that bubbles do is that they'll come out and one will stay small and the other one will encompass the other one, almost like it takes over the other one. You don't want that type of relationship. I don't want to be the person that has to remain small and you taking over me. And I don't want to be the person that's taking over you. Then the third thing that bubbles do is that they'll come out, they'll be the same size, and they'll sit next to each other perfectly like they are meant to be together. But that can be deceiving because those are the type of people that when they get home, they sleep in separate bedrooms. They really don't like each other, but in the public, they look good. But the last type is when bubbles come together and they come out, and when they touch, they expand into one big bubble. The person that is for you should make you better, not bitter. They should make you able to be the freedom and liberty to be everything that you're created to be. And then when you come together, the togetherness, you decide what you're going to do to make the world better because you're together.
Oh man, beautifully said. Now, when we talk about men and women, when we talk to our friends, I know that men we're a little different than women. Women, they are more open to talk amongst women, whereas men, we're more closed in. Um, we won't share our feelings because we feel like I don't want my boys clowning me. I don't want the homeboys laughing at me.
This is the thing about when I hear you say laughing at me.
Okay.
Why are we so concerned about what other people think of us instead of what we think of us?
I want to say, speaking for myself,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in school, you remember when you wasn't cool enough, if you go to class, they'll laugh at you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have tough skin, you'll run home and say, I don't want to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be back in there. So I think that growing up, you got your homies that'll laugh at you. And I mean, as grown-ups, I mean, I don't even think the way that I laugh at my boys now for me is the same way of me laughing and teasing kids. It's just, picking on them. But then when we talk about serious matters, how can we as men really talk to our men peers and say, listen, I got some problems. I got something really bothering me, and actually have this peer of mine actually accept and listen. How can men
Well,
open up
I
to
think
men?
that men have to take the leap. They have to create the environments to do that. I know that I've been watching, there's some podcasts that come on. There's some things that I know LeBron has a thing where they sit in the barbershop and all the guys are around there kind of talking, and they're talking about real life deep issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to continue to create the platform and the opportunity for men to do that. And men have to create that for themselves. Y'all got to do that. That's y'all work.
I feel myself, I'm open to it. And I have a lot of other men around me that's open. And we talk about different things, but it's so different when you're in the inner city and you have immature men. And these same immature men have so many different problems that they're not talking. It's a lot of guys that sit and we express our feelings, we express our thoughts because we have families that we want to go home to.
Mm-hmm.
We have people that depend on us. So we think a lot different. We're not going to think of something that's going to cost us our life or jail time.
Mm-hmm.
So we think things out and we express our frustrations. But that's just me and a few of the guys that I'm around. But there's so many different men out here that still do not know how to express themselves. So I'm really trying to focus on those men that don't know how to express themselves, that's around other men.
I think one of the things, and I say this all the time, the number one way to teach a social or a behavioral skill is by modeling. Because believe it or not, those people are watching you. They're watching what you do, they're watching how you do it. And when you show them something different, they can do something different. But if they don't have an example, where do they get it from?
Okay.
So you have to be the change that you want to see, but then you have to do it in such a way that other people can see it. You have to allow them to see you in a space where you're vulnerable. You have to allow them to see you how you work out your frustrations. They have to have an opportunity to see it. So I think your platform, as far as your podcast, is a great way of doing it. But to have your guys come together and maybe have a session where at the motorcycle club, you have a session where it's just about, let's just talk about the stuff that's irritating us.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just talk about it. Let's put it all on the table and then say, okay, what are some of the options of how you deal with this irritation? Break it down. Say, okay, now if you do it that way, what's the possibilities?
Yeah.
And let them come up with it, because once they see it and they go, well, you know what? Yeah, I don't really want to go to prison. I don't really want to hurt nobody. Yeah, but we have to get them involved in the conversation. You have to give them an opportunity to just say flat out what's going on, how they feel, what's irritating, and then give them healthy options. Because if you don't have an option, you can't use them.
Right. And that's why me personally, I try to use my platform to be different, to be the spark. You know, if I can be cool enough in this area over here, and people think I'm cool, well, let me use my coolness to open myself up to let people know it's cool to talk about mental health. It's cool to talk about politics. It's cool to know what's going on in your community.
It's cool to read.
It's cool to read. Because a lot of times we don't read.
Oh my God.
And I do a lot of reading.
It's cool to read. And so many things are in books. I mean, it's just fascinating. And all these people that we're talking about, they got a story too. So maybe their story can be in a book.
Right. So I just hope that the way I move, the way I'm open, when they see me giving back to the community, when they see me talking about issues like this, I'm hoping that if I don't spark 30 people, I spark 3. And then that 3 turn to 6. And then they move on and they say, well, he does it. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it may make me feel. Maybe I can start to open up. Maybe I can tell my homeboy over here or my father over here, because a lot of men still don't know how to open up and talk to their fathers.
Exactly.
They don't know how to, because you have certain fathers that was very strict, so they didn't think their fathers loved them
or cared.
Then you have fathers that just wasn't there, and certain men feel like, hey, I can't express myself to my dad. I don't know what to say. I can't tell him no because I want to tell him no. And they have a hard time opening up to him. And then they resent them for so long. I see it. So that's why I'm able to speak on it, because I see different guys where I sit and I say, man, your dad is cool. I don't mess with my dad like that.
He cool with you, but you don't have the relationship that I have with him.
Correct.
So I think that the thing that's so important, especially under this topic, is isolation. It's the mindset that it's only me. Nobody else is dealing with this but me. No one else can understand it but me. So all of us who've been through something has to tell. We have to talk about it so that somebody else who's sitting in that seat can say, oh, I was thinking that same thing. Oh, I thought that. And how you got past it, what you did to get through it. We have to tell our stories, because our mess becomes our message and our test becomes our testimony. And it's people who are watching us. And we don't even know that people are watching us. But we have to be open and honest about the things that have challenged us, the things that challenge us now. Because as long as you living, you are going to have a challenge.
Every day.
Nobody is perfect and nobody is exempt.
And once people stop feeling and living as if they're so perfect, oh man, it'd be a better place.
But if we have to stop thinking that we're in this by ourselves. We were created to be interdependent, not independent. We need people. So we need to have people around us that we can talk to, people that we'll laugh with, people that we can cry with, we need people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to share this with you as well, because we're talking about mental health and the suicide thing. I had to learn not to laugh at people. And I want people that's listening to understand, when we see people out doing things that we might not do and we think is funny because we wouldn't do it, it's a story behind it. And so many times we make fun of somebody that we don't even know. We laugh, we giggle. And I can't say that I've never done it myself. I seen things out in the street. I'll pull my phone out. I'll record it and laugh at it because I thought it was funny. And I'll share it and show people, ha, 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 ha. I think this is funny. But as I matured and I had conversations and had dialogue with different people, I understood that it's more than what I seen mentally with them. It's a reason why. Some of the craziest things people do, I've heard people tell me, I do it because this makes me happy. It takes my mind away from correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, that's deep.
And to be real honest, that's healthy for them.
Correct. It
And
is.
so the very thing that we're laughing at is something that's keeping them alive, that's keeping them sane, that's keeping them from jumping off the bridge, is keeping them. And so whatever it is, and I talk about laughter a lot because laughter is necessary. The Bible tells us that laughter is like a medicine for your soul. You're supposed to laugh.
Yeah.
There are things that are funny. You should laugh, but laughing at someone
It's
who's
wrong.
hurting or who may be mentally challenged, may be dressing a certain way because of their mental challenge. We don't know, and so we have to be careful with how we treat people.
As I agree, I strongly agree.
We have to be careful with that because sometimes the very thing that we do could be the thing that pushes that person right over the edge.
Yeah, and then you wonder what made them kill themselves, or what made them go out and shoot up everybody, go out and kill this guy. Probably because this guy kept picking at him, and he just couldn't take it no more, and he lashed out. I mean, I learned these things from communication and talking to people. Different groups and different environments that I've been in has helped me learn and understand people. I'm not a professional at it, but I just understand, and I become real relatable to individuals. And I wanted to really speak on that because we laugh at a lot of people.
But sometimes we're laughing. I mean, I always say this: the first thing you have to do is to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because the reason that you might be laughing at somebody else is because you're miserable and you're not dealing with your own misery. You're trying to deflect so that you don't have to deal with what's going on inside of you. In order for you to heal from a thing, you got to be real about what's going on with you. Maybe you still suffering from an abuse that you ain't told nobody about. And men are abused just like women are.
Yeah, no, I strongly agree.
No, I know it because they come and talk to me. And so when I shared my story about my abuse and what happened to me, I had more men call me to tell me that me being open and honest about what I experienced gave them the opportunity to really own what had happened to them.
Now, do you get more men or more women that openly talk to you, or is it just a mixture of both?
It's just a mixture of both.
Okay.
I was at the party last night. And at the party last night, a man walked over to me. He says, "You don't even remember me, but about 3 years ago, I saw you in a Coney Island, and you changed my life. You talked to me, and you helped me, and I thank you for that." I did not remember that man I didn't. However, what I do is just what I do. So if someone's talking to me, or I see that somebody has something going on and I can help them, I'm going to do that.
No, that's what you're supposed to do as a human.
Mm-hmm.
As a
human.
A
lot of times we don't talk to people. We see people and we see them struggling and we leave them there. Sometimes they just need a smile. Sometimes sometimes I'll do this, and I believe in random acts of kindness. So sometimes I'm in the drive-thru, and when I finish with my order, I'll ask the person behind me. I say, "Well, what's their bill?" And they'll tell me, and especially if I can see that it's a family with kids, and I'll pay their bill and drive off. I don't need you to tell me thank you. I don't need a picture. I just want to do something that person feels like, man, it lightened my load.
Yeah, that's always a great thing. What they say, is it paying or is it playing it forward?
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Okay, pay it forward. Yeah, no, that's a good thing. When we talk about suicide and we talk about murder suicides, I know an individual who I personally knew who killed his wife, made the news, and then he turned the gun on himself and killed himself at the gas station. Me personally, I was shocked. I was shocked. I couldn't, stomach. I couldn't believe it because the many times that I chatted with him, talked to him, the personality that he showed me didn't match his act. And when it happened, and I don't know if I was wrong for this, but I was really disappointed at him.
It's no way to not feel disappointed at them.
Okay, just making sure I'm not wrong.
Well, first of all,
for
let me
being
say
disappointed.
this. But let me say this, because sometimes we analyze our feelings so deeply that we don't just let our emotions be what our emotions are. So some people in the situation where there's been suicide, the person is angry because, man, you took yourself away from me. I loved you. So anger is a natural emotion that goes with that. You're talking about someone that killed their wife and then killed themselves, and I'm, it's no disappointment and anger goes with that. Like you killed your wife, and then you killed yourself.
I would have felt different if he just killed himself. And I don't say I'm not saying that in a bold way,
that's
but
just your, yeah.
that's my opinion.
If
For you to kill this lady,
or
your
think about
wife,
the people that killed their children, then they killed their spouse, then they killed themselves.
Selfish.
Well, let me say this. I don't want to even use the term selfish. What I will say is, because a lot of times we don't know the mental capacity of a person, the thing that will cause a person to mentally break. And all of us have the capacity to mentally break. They call it a nervous breakdown. But it's when you lose, I call it losing hold of your mind, losing hold of being able to make rational decisions. So your emotions and the hormones and all of this stuff going on at that moment, all of your rational thinking is gone. So when your rational thinking is gone and you do something that just don't make sense, it's hard to make it make sense. You're never going to make it make sense because you can never use a rational mind to explain irrational behaviors.
Okay.
You can't. It's never going to make any sense.
Not at all.
It doesn't make sense, and it's not going to make sense. And so one of the movies for mental health, just understanding the way that mental health kind of mental illness, because there's really there's an overall umbrella of your mental health. Up under the mental health umbrella, there's a continuum from mental wellness to mental illness. And at any given moment, we fall somewhere along that continuum. Some days we're closer to mental illness. Some days we're closer to mental wellness, depending on what life is throwing on us and how we're dealing with this. And if we're using drugs, just all of that. There's so many different things that go into your mental health. And so if a person, there's a movie that demonstrates a person who's mentally ill. They have a diagnosable mental illness, and it's called A Beautiful Mind, and it's with Russell Crowe. And this is based on a true story. The man was a scientist of some sort, or I forgot what he did, but he was very, very bright, to the point of being a genius. But he was a schizophrenic, and so in the first part of the movie, I think maybe the first hour, you saw the whole thing through his lens. So everything that you saw that you thought was real, you thought was real. And then the movie did an excellent job of peeling back what was not reality. And it was like, wow.
I want to have to check that movie out.
Wow. I thought that was real because I'm looking at it through his lens. And so that helped you think that a person who's not thinking rationally, in their mind, is rational.
Yeah, I have to see that movie. I'm gonna have to definitely see it now. You got me wanting to see that.
That's good. It's good. It's really good. Because in the movie, there's two characters that just kind of follow him throughout his life. They're always there. They're always talking to the. And then once they start they weren't real.
Okay.
But you thought they were.
Wow. We getting short on time, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to cover, so I'm going to kind of speed through the last few minutes, and recap on you speaking on a plan. When you say speak on a plan, I'm going to take it you can correct me, that
Mm-hmm.
you're not saying, hey, I'm going to help you work on your
No,
plan for
not at all.
suicide,
Not at
but
all.
you want a person. Is that like an indirect way of making them think for themselves?
Well, it can be, but it's also to really for you to find out where the person is along this continuum of actually doing it. Because if you have somebody say, "No, I ain't never thought about how I was going to do it. I just be thinking about it." That's a totally different thing. Like, "Oh no, I got a plan.
Okay. Okay. So when they say, oh, I got a plan,
Oh, I got a plan."
now it's no time for playing no
Yeah,
games.
it's no
I got
time.
to intervene
I need to
somehow
intervene. I need to get this person some help. And
quickly.
so, and this is the thing that people need to know, that there are three reasons why people can be um, put into the hospital for a mental evaluation without their
Consent.
consent. One is that they are a danger to themselves. So that means they're suicidal. Second, they're a danger to others. They talking about, oh, I'm gonna get them, I'm gonna kill them, I'm gonna take them out, I'm gonna hurt, I'm gonna blow up. Danger to others. Or like what you see it in schools and stuff, people, doing on the internet about how they're gonna kill their class, all that kind of stuff. And then number three is that they're a danger to property. So when we see people going around tearing up stuff, busting out windows, uh, slashing people's tires, all of those are reasons to have you examined. Because that's not normal, rational behavior to be tearing up stuff.
Okay. When we talk about people committing suicide, let's talk about the effect that it leaves the individual who finds these people.
Mm-hmm.
Because people out here, if you're thinking about suicide, just take some time to think about it. For whatever your problem or your reason for committing suicide is, when you do it and it's done, someone is going to come and find you there. A relative, your child, your wife, your husband, your mother. What is the effect that's left behind when a loved one finds their loved one shot in the head or hanging somewhere, overdose?
Overdose. That is trauma. And another word for trauma is wound. And so sometimes that trauma or that wound never really heals. That person is going to need to see somebody. That person is going to need to talk to a professional, because it's not easy to just erase that from your memory. It's, I know so many people that found someone in their home, and then they couldn't live in that home anymore, because every time they walked into that home, they thought of that. They go through the whole scenario, they'll play it over in their head when they walked in, how they found them, the smell, just all of the things that go with that. And so, yes, it is very traumatic to find a person dead at all, much less a person who's dead at their own hands.
Yeah. So anybody that's out there listening, and this is real serious, I want you to just think about it. Take your time and think about every decision that you make, how it does not just affect you, how it affects everybody around you, from your family, from your friends, the trauma that is leaving behind an individual. It's okay for you to feel how you're feeling, but you should ask for help and never feel that no one is willing to listen. You should always seek some type of help and let somebody know what you're thinking. No matter what, we have to become better with opening up, because someone loves you. You're loved by some individual. Believe it or not, there's someone that wants to see you every day. There's someone that wants to talk to you. You got that little nephew, that little cousin that loves you, male or female, whoever's listening, young or old. It's okay to express yourself and talk. We don't want to lose you. We want them here.
Absolutely. And that, my thing is, don't use the thing about life is that as you keep living, things change. Things just change. So, how you're feeling today, if you take yourself out today, you don't give yourself the opportunity to see the joys that's on their way. And
Mm-hmm.
even though it looks like it may not be anything joyful at all, keep living. Joy is a coming.
It's coming. And you can talk about those rough moments. You can talk
Yes.
about, man, I remember that time I was in the dark place and how I came out of that dark place. Man, I didn't think I can overcome this. And I'm so glad. Now you got a real testament. You got a real story to share to somebody. And you'll be a blessing to somebody
And
else.
you can be a blessing to you because you can still do some things in life that bring you joy, that makes you happy, that makes you smile. That as long as you are living, you have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to, just like, I know people that say, well, I loved and lost, because that's another reason why people become very despondent and sad if they lose a loved one, whether they lose the loved one through divorce or breakup, or even if a person actually passes away. However, that person would not want you to be miserable and stay in a dark place. Yeah, it's okay to be sad. Yeah, it's okay to be down. But now it's time to turn it up and say, what things do I want? What things can make me happy? I work with a group of women who are widows, and they have a whole thing about love after loss. And many of them have gone on and remarried, and how they infuse their loved ones that they had into their new the wedding they had. I was just amazed at things that people can do. So we have to be open to not keeping people stuck in a box. Yeah, I always say this: we don't really prepare for death.
Not at all.
We don't prepare for death. And so when my mother passed, I remember speaking at the funeral, and people were like, I could not believe that you spoke. I would have never been able to. I say, first of all, I speak for a living. How dare I not use the gift that came through her to honor her? The second thing that I did is that I stopped moping around about, oh, I lost my mama. I lost my mama. I lost my mama. Uh-uh. I started to think about, let me celebrate the fact that I ever had her in the first place. And so I would do things to celebrate her. So I wasn't sad when I thought about her. I wasn't sad that she's no longer with me, because now I feel like she's my angel. So I'll talk to her and I'll be laughing. Or if I hear a certain song, my mother was a major dancer. She loved hustling. So songs come on, and when I hear them, I go, okay, mama, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. So you can make it joyful, but that's your choice.
Okay. Yeah, because I hear um, some statistics of how older men take death a little harder, and how older men commit suicide after the loss of a loved one as
Mm-hmm.
well. But people don't talk about that.
Yep, they sure don't. And this is the other thing about being by ourselves. People who are married live longer. Being yoked up, you live longer because you got somebody to look out for you. You looking out for somebody, but when you by yourself, and you might not look out for yourself.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing about widowers. Men generally, when they lose a loved one, they are quicker to get a new one, because
Mm.
they don't like being by themselves. They're so used to an accustomed to having a mate. They tend to get a mate quicker.
Okay. Never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Never knew that. By you bringing that up, I can't say when I look at women, they go a lot longer. I actually have heard women say, I don't even think I want to get married
Yep.
again.
They say, I don't think I want a man. I don't think I need a man. The devil is a lie. I'm just saying.
Oh man. We'll go ahead. We're gonna wrap this up. But before we wrap this up, Dr. Sabrina, man, we gotta talk about you. We gotta also talk about what you got going on. Let's talk about your show.
My show is called Dr. Sabrina Unlocks. It's on Fox Soul. You can go over to foxsoul .tv or to their YouTube page, and see my first episode, my first hour-long episode, which was on this past Monday, March the 21st. It was live. And so Dr. Sabrina Unlocks will be a series of specials where we'll talk about particular things that I will be unlocking. And so the first one was the Single Mothers Chronicle. So we talked to women who were single mothers and some of the issues that single mothers have. And so we had women who were themselves single mothers or they had been raised by powerful single mothers. And so that was the first one.
Okay, that's great. I can't wait to watch the second one. I seen the first one myself. And anybody that's out there on social media, how can they find you?
Oh, on social media, I'm on Instagram at Dr. Sabrina Speaks. I am on Facebook at just Dr. Sabrina Jackson. I am a ticking and a talking on TikTok at The People Expert, but you can get to any of my social media platforms on my website, just simply my name, sabrinajackson.com.
That's great. And by the way, she is a author.
Yeah, I have 6 books.
She has 6 books.
Go to the website.
Go to the website. What's the website?
sabrinajackson.com.
Yeah, y'all go ahead and check her out. And she's on Fox 2 every Monday.
9:30 a.m. We'll be on in the morning.
Live. So y'all see her. I won't say y'all seen her first here, but y'all have seen her around. She gets around. Dr. Sabrina, thank you for joining my podcast today to talk about the mental health and the suicide. I do want to talk about it more down the road because we do need to bring this awareness out and get people to actually open up and talk about this stuff.
Absolutely.
It is something that's affecting the world, the Black community, people in general.
Can I add one more statistic?
No, go ahead, definitely.
Because suicide is a huge thing and it's becoming more and more pervasive in the Black community. But with the LGBT community, with the youth of the LGBT community, they are 5 times more likely to commit suicide.
You know what? I did not think about them. Since you brought that up, let me ask you a question. Is that rate like that just because they're not as openly accepted?
Exactly.
Okay.
People, they don't feel like they can talk to their family, or they may be shunned by their family. They may be put out by their family. And so there are so many things that they feel, or they are abused and laughed at. We talked about people being laughed at. So if you are a transgender youth and people knew you as a boy and now you're dressing as a girl and they filming you and punking you, all of that makes for people being suicidal. And then a lot of times they get abused, they may get raped, and then sometimes their cases aren't followed or taken as seriously as other.
I'm going to say
we don't have that in the Detroit Police Department, because we have a whole section that specifically works with the LGBT community.
Oh yeah. Yes. I definitely know the young lady that's
amazing.
That. Yes. Danny Woods. Yes. That's my homie. If she watching, Danny Woods, what's happening? Yeah. I didn't think about them doing this whole show because that would make sense because they're not always accepted. And I guess I didn't think about them because I see that in the world we live on today that we can't really talk about them without backlash. So for me, I'm just thinking off the top of my head that they don't have no problems. But since you brought that up, you're right, because fathers that have sons, they're not so accepting to that. So they would have some type of mental abuse, some type of trauma growing up in that household when you have a father that wanted a boy and the son chooses to go towards a feminine way. So, yeah, that would cause that individual to not feel accepted, not feel wanted. And definitely think about, taking his life, if not running away, depending on how strong he is mentally. So you're right about that. And that's a whole nother community that I probably should tap into just to get a perspective from them.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know.
Absolutely. Danny would be a great example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did tell her not too long ago that I wanted to get on a podcast, but I'm definitely gonna have to have a episode to talk about that as well. Yeah. All right now. So that's Dr. Sabrina again. I want to thank you for coming to my show, man. It's always informative. It's
Thank
always
you.
informative. And
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping that the people out there listening, I'm hoping that you guys can take heed to something that was said on the show. And if not, I'm hoping that you can share it to someone that you might think needs to hear this. So until the next time, I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Catch me next week on the podcast. And again, if you're thinking about suicide, don't do it. Speak out. We love you. We don't want to lose you. You are valued to someone.
Yes.
All right, now, thank you.